Good afternoon. This week, I've been toying with the idea of talking a bit about prayer. I was going back and forth wondering if it fits my initial description of what these videos would be about, which is delving into lesser known or explored topics of our faith. I decided to look for inspiration at the Holy Father's most recent audiences. Well, this is his third straight week talking about prayer, so I think it's safe for me to spend a few minutes on it with you. Now, you're all very capable of looking up what the Holy Father has been saying in his audiences, so I don't want to try to recap all that he's been talking about. After all, he's pretty good at delivering messages. I don't want to mess with that, and I encourage you to read these and many of his other audiences. However, I do want to springboard off of a few things that Pope Francis says in his most recent audiences. There's so much to say on this topic, and so many different directions to go. I want to tackle just one for now. Prayer, most simply, is a conversation with God. As in any conversation, there are times of talking and times of listening. We come in with our own thoughts, ideas, and questions, and for it to be a fruitful conversation, we have to remain open to another perspective, or correction, or the possibility that we won't necessarily have all of our questions answered at the end. Interestingly, I think a lot of us who have tried to develop some pattern of prayer would be tempted to say that the most difficult part of prayer is not hearing an audible response, when in reality, it's more often a struggle to know how to pray. In my years working with high school and college students, the most common response to an invitation to prayer that I heard was, "I don't know what to do." As we get older, we can sometimes feel less free to say it so simply. We feel like we should know by this point, especially if we're active in the church and we practice and pursue our faith. In my own life, I can attest to this wholeheartedly. Many of you know that I spent some years in formation with a religious community to become a religious sister. I can assure you, even those who devote their daily lives to prayer struggle with it. Even in such a prayer-rich environment, the oldest and most holy sisters would admit, there are times when I kneel down in chapel and don't know what to do. It's like I forgot or something. This is normal, but it doesn't mean it's comfortable. So, what is the answer? How do we press through this feeling of ineptitude? Well, in his first of these three audiences, Pope Francis called prayer the breath of faith, faith's most proper expression. He says that it's like a cry that issues from the heart of those who believe and entrust themselves to God. The answer is to come in empty-handed and start off with something to the effect of, "Jesus, I want to pray, but I don't know where to start." Or sometimes more honestly, "Jesus, I want to pray, but I don't know where to start." Quoting from the Catechism, Pope Francis reminds us that faith is having two hands raised up, a voice that cries out to implore the gift of salvation. The Catechism states that humility is the foundation of prayer. Prayer is born of the earth, of the humus, from which humility derive. It comes from our precarious state, from our continuous thirst for God. The fact is, we're not super saints, no matter how much we practice and how much time we've spent in prayer. So we don't have to be embarrassed at our need to return to the basics, over and over again. So, something I would ask you to do with me this week is to pray, every day, in a way that leaves us vulnerable to God. Find some time alone. This will be easier for some than for others. Begin with the sign of the cross and a prayer you know well and love. For some, that's the Our Father, the Hail Mary, or the St. Michael prayer. Then start your conversation with God. Be honest with Him. Tell Him what you're worried about or excited about, and give these to Him. I usually ask Him what He wants from me today or this week. Remember to take time to listen. Even though your ears don't hear him, your heart will eventually. I recommend setting a time for this, like 5 or 10 minutes to start. Sometimes it feels like you've been praying for hours when it's only been 2 minutes. When you're done, thank the Lord for helping you to begin and ask Him to help you again tomorrow. I ask you to do this with me each day. I will pray for you during my own prayer time. If you do it every day for the next week, I guarantee you'll notice a difference in your approach to prayer and your relationship with the Lord. This isn't magic, and it's not something we can ever really master. Remember those older holy sisters? It is, however, the best thing we can strive to grow in, and it will feed so much else in our lives.